The sun was beginning to set over the Arizona mountains, painting the sky with shades of orange and purple. Alex Stone, a 43-year-old veteran, walked slowly toward the town's animal shelter. His worn boots hit the pavement, a reminder of the weight of each step he had taken in his life. Since leaving the Army 2 years ago, he'd been trying to find something to fill the emptiness, but there was a void no job or therapy seemed to heal. Shadow, his loyal German shepherd, the war dog who had been by his side on dangerous missions, had been forced into retirement after an injury. The shelter was small and simple, with rusty fences and makeshift dog houses. The strong smell of disinfectant hung in the air, mixed with the sound of scattered, mournful barking. Alex was there at the request of his older sister, Sarah, who believed a dog could help him cope with the traumas of post-war life. He had hesitated, but deep down, something inside him urged him to take that step. As he walked through the narrow aisles, he observed each cage with a critical eye. Some dogs barked enthusiastically, wagging their tails in an attempt to grab attention. Others simply watched him silently, their eyes filled with melancholy. None of them, however, seemed to have that special spark he associated with Shadow. Just as he was about to give up, a shelter worker caught his attention. "Mr. Stone, we have a German shepherd in the back that might interest you," Liam said with a soft voice. "He came in a few weeks ago, but he's a bit special." Alex looked up, surprised. A German shepherd. Without saying a word, he followed Liam to a more secluded area. In one of the cages, lying in the farthest corner, was a large dog with black and tan fur. His posture was stiff, but his eyes showed evident wariness. Even so, Alex felt his heart race. He'd recognize that dog anywhere. "Shadow," he whispered, his voice barely audible. The German shepherd slowly raised his head and looked at Alex, but there was no emotion in his gaze, no wagging tail, no attempt to approach, just an empty, distant look, as if Alex were just another stranger. "He doesn't recognize me," Alex murmured, taking a step back. His chest tightened, as if something inside had broken. But then, staring at Shadow for a few more seconds, one thing became clear: he couldn't give up on this reunion. Alex and Shadow have an emotional story that's just beginning. But what will happen next? Want to find out? Then go ahead and leave a like to support this journey, and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss the continuation of this story of overcoming and friendship. Alex stood still in front of the cage, unable to look away. Shadow, the German shepherd who once exuded boundless energy and fierce determination, now seemed like a mere shadow of the dog he had known. His eyes, once full of life, were now dark and distant. The jagged scars on his back leg and one of his ears were stark, visible marks from the battlefield. But there was something more, an invisible wound, a deep, pervasive pain that Alex knew all too well, as he carried the same kind of silent suffering. "He's been through a lot," Liam explained in a low voice. "He was found at a smaller shelter in another state. It looks like he was given up by someone who couldn't handle him. He suffers from severe anxiety and doesn't trust humans easily." Liam paused, looking at Alex hesitantly. "Do you know him?" Alex nodded slowly, his voice coming out in a barely audible whisper. "He was my partner, my best friend." For a moment, he got lost in a wave of memories, the grueling training where they both learned to trust each other implicitly, the risky missions where Shadow had saved his life more than once, and the long, silent nights when the dog was the only thing keeping him from falling apart. And now there he was, standing in front of Shadow, and the dog had no idea who he was. Liam carefully opened the cage. Shadow watched but made no move. Alex slowly knelt down, extending his hand. "Hey buddy, it's me, Alex." His voice trembled, but he kept it soft. Shadow tilted his head slightly, as if trying to understand, but remained still, muscles tense. Alex felt a lump in his throat. He knew this wouldn't be an easy process. "Would you like to spend some time with him? We can take him to the playyard," Liam suggested, trying to ease the tension in the air. Alex nodded without hesitation. In the yard, the scene wasn't much different. Shadow kept his distance, sniffing the air but avoiding any direct interaction. Alex watched every movement, trying to understand what the dog was feeling. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Alex made a decision. He looked at Liam and said firmly, "I'm taking him home. No matter how long it takes, I'll bring him back." There was fierce determination in his voice, an echo of the unbreakable loyalty they had shared in the past. He knew that, just like Shadow, he too needed rescuing, and maybe this was the beginning for both of them. The drive to Alex's house was marked by an unsettling silence. Shadow lay in the back of the truck, resting on a blanket Alex had laid out for him. The German Shepherd kept his eyes fixed on the window, avoiding any eye contact. Alex glanced at the rearview mirror from time to time, trying to decipher what was going on in the dog's mind. It was hard not to feel rejected, but he also knew that as veterans, they both carried invisible burdens that made them difficult to reach. When they arrived home, Alex parked at the entrance of his small property on the outskirts of town. The house was simple, surrounded by a large yard with a few trees gently swaying in the wind. He opened the truck door and called to Shadow, but the dog hesitated. After a few agonizing seconds, he stepped down slowly, taking cautious, deliberate steps. Every movement was meticulous, as if constantly assessing the hostile surroundings. Alex led Shadow to the front door, opening it carefully. "Welcome to your new home, boy," he said, trying to sound cheerful, though his voice carried a note of uncertainty. Shadow entered but stood rigidly in the entryway, sniffing the air cautiously. He seemed suspicious, as if expecting something unexpected, something dangerous, to happen at any moment. Determined to create a comfortable space, Alex had set up an area in the corner of the living room with a new dog bed, food and water bowls, and a few toys he'd bought on the way home. "This is your spot, Shadow," he said, pointing to the corner. But the German Shepherd stayed where he was, a statue of wariness, ignoring the invitation. Alex sighed, feeling the familiar frustration begin to weigh on him. As Alex was preparing something to eat, he couldn't help but remember the days when Shadow would run to him, brimming with energy and boundless loyalty. That dog was different now, wounded in a way Alex understood all too well. He looked at Shadow, who was still standing in the same spot, staring off into the distance. "I know how you feel, buddy. I feel the same way lost," he murmured, more to himself than to the dog. That night, Alex left the bedroom door open, hoping Shadow would feel safe enough to come closer. But when he turned off the lights, he heard the soft, almost imperceptible sound of paws padding on the floor. Shadow didn't come directly to him, but lay down near the bedroom door, keeping a safe distance. Alex smiled to himself in the dark. It was a small step, a tentative reach, but to him, it was the beginning of something much bigger. The next morning, Alex woke up to the soft sound of footsteps coming from the hallway. Shadow was sitting near the door, ears perked, silently watching him. For a moment, Alex felt a spark of desperate hope. Maybe something familiar was stirring in the dog's mind. "Good morning, Shadow," Alex said, stretching and forcing a smile. But the German Shepherd only looked away and slowly walked back to the corner of the room. Determined to rebuild their connection, Alex spent much of the day trying to interact with Shadow. He grabbed a tennis ball and threw it to him, but the dog didn't react. He placed a bowl of fresh food beside him, but Shadow only approached it after Alex left the room. Each attempt at closeness was met with cold silence, a wall of indifference. Alex felt the crushing weight of rejection, but he also understood it was more than that. It was fear, deep-seated distrust, maybe even a profound, silent pain. That afternoon, Alex decided to try something different. He grabbed a worn military vest he had kept in an old box in the closet. It was the same vest he wore during missions with Shadow. As he put it on, the familiar smell of sand, sweat, and the battlefield hit him. A ghost of battles past. "Let's see if you remember this, boy," he said, taking the vest to the backyard where Shadow was. Shadow looked at the vest with curiosity, tilting his head slightly. For a moment, Alex thought he had managed to stir some buried memory. He threw the vest on the ground and stepped back, giving Shadow space to approach. The German Shepherd sniffed the fabric, his nostrils flaring as he analyzed the scent. For a brief moment, his eyes seemed to lose their emptiness, but then he pulled back abruptly, retreating with his tail low. Alex sighed, feeling the hope fade away once again. Sitting on the porch that night, Alex watched Shadow lying in the backyard, his eyes fixed on the distant stars. "I'm not giving up on you," Alex said aloud, as if speaking to the vast, indifferent wind. "You didn't give up on me when I needed you most, and I'm not giving up now." He knew he was asking a lot, pushing against an invisible barrier, but he also knew that the bond between them was still there, buried beneath layers of trauma and time. As the air grew colder, Alex decided to give Shadow the space he so desperately needed. He went inside, leaving the back door ajar, and went to bed. Hours later, the soft sound of paws scratching the floor woke him. Looking at the foot of the bed, he saw Shadow lying there, eyes half closed. Alex didn't say anything, just smiled to himself in the comforting dark. The distance between them was shrinking. It was still small, a mere inch, but enough to reignite his determination. In the following days, small, precious moments began to appear like cracks in the impenetrable wall of distrust that separated Alex and Shadow. On Monday morning, as Alex was chopping wood in the yard, he noticed Shadow watching him from a distance, head tilted. The German shepherd kept his tail down, but there was a subtle, almost imperceptible curiosity in his eyes. Alex paused for a moment, wiped the sweat from his forehead, and reached out to Shadow. "Want to help, boy?" he asked in a playful, gentle tone. Shadow didn't approach, but he didn't look away either. Later that same day, during a walk around the yard, Alex picked up a stick and tossed it lightly forward, not expecting much. To his surprise, Shadow took a few tentative steps toward the object, stopped, and then returned to where he had been. Alex smiled, a genuine, relieved smile. "Ah, so you remember how to play? You're just pretending you don't." Despite Shadow's shy, almost hesitant response, that moment felt like monumental progress. On Tuesday, Alex decided to take him for a walk. Shadow's old ID tag was still stored away, so Alex carefully cleaned it and attached it to the new collar. "Let's go for a walk," he said, adjusting the leash. Shadow hesitated when Alex opened the gate, looking outside as if the world beyond the fence was a hostile, unpredictable place. Still, with a gentle tug, Alex managed to convince him to walk. During the walk, Shadow seemed incredibly tense, always on high alert. He was constantly sniffing the air and kept his body stiff, poised as though expecting imminent danger around every corner. Alex noticed this and spoke calmly, his voice a steady drone of reassurance. "You don't need to be like that, boy. We're safe here." He knew those words didn't mean much to Shadow yet, but he hoped that over time, the calm tone would start to make a difference, a subtle shift in the dog's fearful world. As they were heading home, something unexpected, something truly monumental happened. Alex was taking off Shadow's leash when the dog approached and sniffed his hand. Alex stood perfectly still, feeling his heart race, an electric surge of hope. "That's it, Shadow," he murmured, trying not to show too much overwhelming emotion. He didn't move as Shadow kept exploring his scent for a few precious seconds before pulling away again. For Alex, that small gesture felt like a profound sign that something inside Shadow, something deeply buried, was finally starting to change, to stir. That evening, while Alex was preparing dinner, Shadow lay on the rug near the kitchen. It wasn't exactly an invitation for affection, no wagging tail or eager pant, but the mere physical closeness was enough for Alex to feel that they were finally on the right path, a path towards healing. He looked at Shadow and whispered, "I think we're becoming friends again, huh?" Shadow didn't respond with a bark or a purr, but his eyes seemed less distant, less clouded. It was as if a part of him was finally, slowly, recognizing the man who had once meant everything to him, the man who was patiently waiting for his return. Have you ever had a moment where you felt a special, undeniable connection with an animal, even after tough times? Share in the comments. We love hearing your inspiring stories. It was a gray morning, and the mist covered the yard like a soft, ethereal veil. Alex woke up early, as he always did, but found Shadow already awake, sitting by the living room window. The German shepherd was staring out as if lost in deep thought, perhaps remembering fragments of a past he couldn't quite grasp. Alex approached carefully, sensing that every interaction with the dog was a delicate dance, a test of infinite patience. Remembering something, boy? He asked softly, though he knew he wouldn't get an answer. After breakfast, Alex decided to bring something special for the day. From the back of the closet, he pulled out an old wooden box filled with items he'd kept since his military discharge. Among the dusty medals, faded photos, and crumpled letters was a worn-out toy, a red rubber ball that Shadow absolutely loved during their breaks in the field. a simple joy amidst the chaos. Alex held it for a moment, feeling the weight of countless memories in his hand. Then he went to the yard where Shadow was and threw the ball to the ground near the dog. Shadow looked at the ball, his body immediately tensing. He sniffed the air as if the object carried a familiar scent, something deeply buried in his memories, just out of reach. For a few seconds, it seemed like he was going to ignore it, a habit of his trauma, but then he stepped forward. He sniffed the ball hesitant before stepping back again, an internal struggle playing out. Alex said with a hopeful, soft smile. He had decided to take Shadow to a special place, a nearby park that used to be their favorite spot during their days off from training, a haven of shared memories. It was a final test, a chance to see how far they had truly come, how much healing had taken place. On the way to the park, Shadow seemed more relaxed than ever before. He was sitting in the back seat of the truck, his head slightly leaning out the open window, letting the wind brush against his face, a joy he hadn't experienced in years. Alex watched through the rearview mirror, feeling a mix of overwhelming pride and profound relief. For weeks, he had fought tirelessly to bring back the dog who meant so much to him, and now, this very moment felt like a monumental milestone, a victory. Just like the old times, huh? Alex asked softly, not really expecting an answer, but saying it for himself. When they arrived at the park, Alex let go of Shadow's leash and grabbed the worn rubber ball once again. The German Shepherd stood still for a moment, analyzing the familiar surroundings. But instead of hesitating like before, he ran toward the ball as soon as Alex threw it, boundless energy returning to his stride. The two of them spent hours playing, a joyous reunion, as if time and trauma had never existed, wiped clean by pure, simple joy. Alex increasingly felt that Shadow was becoming the dog he once knew, the fierce, loyal companion. But at the same time, he understood that both of them had changed forever. They weren't exactly the same as before, but that didn't mean they couldn't build something new, something even stronger, together. In the late afternoon, as the sun dipped low, casting long shadows, Alex sat on one of the park benches and Shadow lay down next to him, resting his head on his owner's leg. A gesture of complete trust. Alex looked out at the horizon, a feeling of deep peace flooding his chest. "I told you I wouldn't give up, Shadow," he whispered, gently stroking the dog's head, his voice thick with emotion. For the very first time in years, Alex felt like a fragmented part of him had finally been restored, made whole. Shadow wasn't just a dog, he was a symbol of everything they had survived and overcome together. As they headed home that night, Alex knew that the future, though still uncertain, would be faced side by side with his partner. Shadow, with his renewed loyalty and courage, had found his way back to Alex's heart, and Alex, in turn, had learned that patience, unwavering love, and sheer determination could heal even the deepest, most invisible wounds. They were complete again, ready to face whatever came next together. If this story touched your heart, please leave a like to support us, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel to hear more touching stories like this. Your presence here truly makes a difference.